Welcome to the Instructional Mentor Webinar Recap. This is a video put together to briefly summarize the major points of the Instructional Mentor Webinar for EDU 5901. Throughout our time together, we'll be referencing a couple of resources. The first one is the Webinar Participant Pack, which you're able to print off using the announcement attachment in the Moodle course. We will also be referencing the supplemental materials packet, which you can access at the same place where you find the webinar participant packet. You're free to print off the supplemental materials if you wish. The supplemental material packet, though, is not required to print off, as opposed to the webinar participant packet, which will be useful for taking notes and creating resources that will be helpful for your mentoring practice. As we go along through this webinar, you'll notice the stars in the lower right-hand corner. These stars indicate that there is a packet page that mirrors the information that you're seeing on the slide. Slides without the star mean that that content is specific to this video and specific to the PowerPoint presentation. So, to begin here, have just a reflective question for you to think about is, what makes a great team? What are some of the things that come to your mind? Is it the chemistry of the team, the personalities, the competencies that the individuals have? A lot of things probably are crossing your mind here, thinking about what makes a great team. There's also the question, though, to look at it from the other side, are what are the things that destroy team? And out of the research that's been done, there are 5 general dysfunctions that are understood to be a part of the team. And I'd like to talk to you about those here in our connector. Patrick Lenciani did some work with these 5 dysfunctions of a team. And the book that he wrote is a wonderful summer read where it's written in a narrative style and it goes through these dysfunctions in a very easy read and kind of digest and apply fashion. This is probably one of my top 2 leadership books of all times. And the 5 dysfunctions that he highlights might be helpful for us as mentors because we're working in a team with our new teachers, a team with our administrators, and in the end, Satan wants to stop the ministry and the team that we're developing and a part of. Because he's probably got an MO here that if he can disrupt the work of one teacher or even force a resignation, if you will, that's going to affect hundreds of students from receiving Christian education. And how does Satan break up a team? I think Patrick's work might provide some insights into this dynamic. And not only what these dysfunctions are, but let's also talk about what they look like. The first one is an absence of trust. That when you come to the team, you'll see that it's not really trusting. And what does that look like then? You're going to see individuals on the team who are standing and kind of making themselves perceived to be invulnerable. That everything is good, we're strong, and everything's moving along. And you kind of even see this with the second one that he highlights, a fear of conflict, where no one's really on the team calling each other out, or even not even calling each other out, but just being open and truthful about what's going on. And what that looks like is there's this kind of artificial harmony where everything's great here, when everybody in the team, and maybe even those outside of the team, deep down know that this isn't as great as what we're saying it to be. but we may not be sure how to get past that. And so there winds up being a lack of commitment. And a lot of the discussions then are ambiguous. This is what they sound like. And they're those high in the cloud discussions that sound great, but when it comes to actually the practicality of it all, it's just the rubber's not hitting the road. Or from the other side, the avoidance of accountability, where maybe you are talking about ways that the rubber's hitting the road, but that not a lot of people are stepping up to take hold of the work, ownership of it, or when they do, the standards are really low. And the final dysfunction that he highlights is an inattention to results. This would be the opposite of data-driven instruction, where instead of being specific, I just know that this is how it is. And that's really kind of putting self in the place of the informer. You're becoming the expert, and you just, the status that comes with that, the ego that comes with that, can be very disruptive to a team. Now, in your packet page, on packet page 2, or I'm sorry, you'll see that in the middle of the page you have these things that we value as mentors in new teacher induction. And each one of these values is meant to address one or more of these dysfunctions, and to provide us a resource, provide us a core that we can work collaboratively, we can address these things in a meaningful way, and provide avenues to not only work through these dysfunctions if they start to creep in, but also to kind of keep them at bay as well. And so what I'd ask you to do is just read through these values and answer the question, are these your values too? And how do they address each one of the dysfunctions of a team? So quick, grab that packet page 2 and compare it to the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Our values here are at our core of our professional work. These aren't statements of doctrine as much as they are ways of being as a Lutheran teacher. And so as we're carrying these values into our work with our beginning teachers and with their administrators, we have 2 outcomes for our time together in the webinar here. The first one is to actually practice a coaching conversation around the positive and productive learning environments that we're in the end looking to create and help shape and guide in the new teacher's classroom, as well as our own, for the good of our students. And then the other one is to summarize strategies that build those positive collaborative working relationships between the mentor and the site administrator, who is really a strong ally in this team work that has their finger on the pulse of what's happening day to day in the new teacher's classroom. As we go through the webinar here, there are 5 things that we want to touch on. The first one is our connector, which we've completed, and now we're in our overview. We'll be going through 2 learning components, the scenario coaching practice, and then secondly, the mentor-administrator relationships, before we finally get into our closure and management with some key announcements and dates for you. As we're doing this, even though this is a recording, we still want to find ways to honor our collaborative norms and find ways to listen and engage with others, to hear their voice, to listen to their different perspectives and the things that they bring to the table that we might not necessarily think of ourselves, but that when we do receive those, it triggers other things for us. It creates this synergy, and to feel safe and to understand the confidentiality that comes with that. And confidentiality sometimes is equated with secrecy. That's not really what we're talking about here. The confidentiality we're talking about is an openness between those who are involved in the relationship. And that in the end, it's not that we're doing things in secret, but that we're doing them openly within the confines of that sphere of trust. And when we're talking about confidentiality between our administrator, our new teacher, and ourselves, we're really looking at a two-way trust tree, if you will. And a big part of that is the new teacher. That we aren't necessarily going to go and tell the administrator how it's going, but the new teacher should be having those type of conversations with the administrator. We'll get into a little bit more of that towards the end of the webinar. And as we're carrying out this team approach, we really want to make sure we're presuming positive intentions. And the purpose of that is we all got into ministry for the same reason. And so when we're coming to the table and we're approaching problems, we're looking for that best outcome, and we're just coming at it from different perspectives. So presume the positive intention and find ways to, if it's not syncing up, find that synergy and move forward together in ministry. As we're also going through this, maybe another norm just to highlight is enjoy the video and the breakdown here and the quick summary of our learning and the opportunity to practice and engage with some of the guidelines and the mentoring practices that are really going to set us up for success. So looking forward to moving through that with you. And so without further ado, let's get into the scenario coaching practice. And this is really a vital portion of really bringing together what we do as instructional mentors. And what do we do? If you have your supplemental resource packet, page 3, you'll see an overview of the program that kind of lists out what do we do as mentors, what does that look like. And for the amount of regular meeting time that we're getting together with our new teachers, it really breaks down into number of minutes per month. And we're looking at 120 minutes or more a month. And so with a first-year teacher, that'll look like you want to have a half an hour, maybe more, depending on how things are going, with your new teacher each week. Whereas in the second year, giving them more space to grow and giving them more responsibility and ownership, you might see that 120 minutes break down where you're meeting once every other week for an hour's time. So let's kind of put this all together and just have an opportunity to do that. Probably one of the best opportunities for some of us will be at our next anticipation guide meeting with our triad, where we might use some of these scenarios and just talk through, try on one of the tools, use some of that language and those suggestion stems, or one of the stances that you may be having finding as a strength and you want to build on that, or vice versa. And how you can do that is real simple here. You just have two things to make use of. The first one is if you're role-playing the person of the teacher, in the supplemental resource pack on page 1 and 2, you've got 10 scenarios to choose from. And you could also, if you've got a special scenario that's close to your heart, you can try that on and step into that beginning teacher's roles and consider what it feels like to be mentored. And for those who are role-playing the mentor, if you go into your participant packet and you've got page 2 3 and 4, you've got your choice of a conversation log that as you're going through and trying on those language stems, the stances, to be capturing some of the notes. And start off by using pencil to paper just to get a feel for it. And later on, as we get closer to the start of the school year, some other opportunities will come up for us to get into using the online tools and kind of using the computer to get in there. So those would be some things that you could use with your triad. When you do, really focus on the middle 2 portions of the conversation protocol, because that's really where the meat of the meeting happens. It's where a lot of the stems are used and a lot of the next steps are developed. So really give your attention there if you role play it. Also, there will be an opportunity here to view another example of a mentor and a new teacher sitting together, kind of around a challenging situation involving individual education plans for students. And in that example, you'll also be able to see a heavy use of how the mentor uses the online tools during the meeting. And it might be helpful just to become more familiar with those too as we look to get into them ourselves later in the month of July and at the beginning teacher seminars that are taking place within districts. Talk more about the beginning teacher seminars later though. I want to give you time to figure out how you want to role play this, whether that be in the anticipation guide meeting with your triad, or to view the additional example video of the mentoring meeting, or find a way to do both. Now that you've kind of figured out and maybe even had an opportunity to make some connections to putting together the different components of mentoring that we've learned about thus far, the initial interaction between mentors and beginning teachers really lays the foundation for trust and effective collaboration. And the importance of the first mentor meeting with a new teacher, you just cannot stress it enough, because first impressions, they do count. And this isn't said to stress or overburden anybody, because as we go through the first meeting guidelines, you'll notice a lot of things are points that you are already making in the online discussions. Like the first one there about not jumping in like Sharon did to the first meeting with all of these things to work on instructionally. Rather, the more important thing is to start by laying that foundation for a trusting relationship and really capitalizing on the dual anticipation that exists for the new teacher and you as the mentor. I mean, we're both anticipating great years, really looking forward to being back in the classroom with our students, them for the first time, and so capitalize on that and get to know each other over the summer. It's summer, so go have coffee, or ask if they would be willing to give you a tour of their school and show you around and brag on their new classroom. And as you're doing that, listen openly to concerns or little things that might give insight into areas that could focus on, and just put those in your back pocket. And as you bring those out, as was mentioned in the course room, you don't want to focus on everything all at once. Just go one at a time. And this way you've got some tools and some topics to bring up in a regular order and one at a time, with that idea of one brick at a time, one day at a time, and before you know it, you have a solid foundation. And provide both assistance and a vision for what's going to happen with the instructional mentoring. This might be a connection where in an upcoming assignment, as you put together some mentor cycle targets, you can give the new teacher or the administrator a vision of some of the work that you want that would be good to think about during different points of the year. And during this time, as we mentioned a little bit ago, before jumping into the instructional stuff, getting to know each other and providing practical assistance. And this really gets to be very meaningful for new teachers who may not have a clue of all the resources yet in their classroom. And as you're doing that, to then be supporting them in a very practical, meaningful way, while at the same time being available to hear how are they going to use those books in the classroom, or what are their rules and procedures going to be, and where might be areas that we want to focus on a little bit more, where are strengths that we can really build on and capitalize to start this year off well. And as you're doing that, clarify your roles and expectations right from the beginning so that everybody knows what's expected and when it can be happening. A good chunk of the district's new teacher seminar is spent kind of clarifying these roles and giving teams time to get into it a little bit more when we're all together to really lay that out. All right, next we're going to get now into some really helpful things and guidelines for the mentor-administrator relationship. And to do this, I would like to just provide you with a video link. And this is a mentor and a principal's first meeting for the year. And just invite you to watch it and enjoy the interaction that happens and really take note of how the mentor approaches their work and what are some of the key questions that the administrator has of how this all works together too, because it's probably new in some ways for them as well. On your packet page, you see that we're on page 6. And here you've got a few guidelines for the meeting. And as you're going along, capture some notes on this page of what do you see the mentor saying or doing? What questions are the principal? What questions is the principal asking? And how is the mentor addressing those? And you can take notes on the guidelines, and this can be a useful tool then when you're looking to set up that first meeting with your principal. Come back to it, take a look, and have those things fresh in your mind. So enjoy the video, click the link, and take those notes. Now, as we get into some closing here, before you go, there is an invitation for you to the upcoming book study this year, where mentors from across the country are going to be studying mindsets in the classroom. And the schedule is as follows there. There are 5 sessions. Each session is offered twice so that it can fit into just busy schedules. And each session they're going to go through 1 or 2 chapters from the book. So not looking to overkill it, but actually just to be a great opportunity to get together as mentors, to talk about how things are going with the new teachers, also with things that can be really effective in all classrooms. And while we're doing it, to just enjoy each other's company as Lutheran teachers. These are facilitated by our district lead mentors, which they're really excited to do it, and so those dates and the open invitation is there for you. They'll have more information as the year comes closer and the dates come closer. But just want you to know you're invited and to watch for more information. You're also asked to attend the summer seminar. And this is for those who are mentoring new teachers, as well as those who may not yet receive a new teacher. And it's just a great time to come together to connect with mentors, to sharpen our skills and as mentors, as we're putting all these tools together. And while we're doing it, the bigger thing, celebrate and welcome the new teachers to the district. So the dates are here for you. The link here is to a registration page that has full details there for you. And the last thing before you go is the final assignments. You've got the mentor cycle targets, which is trying to set up the cycle that you'll get into as a mentor and to have some things that can guide your work we want the new teachers to be the drivers of it. And also though, sometimes the new teachers aren't going to be as comfortable knowing which direction they want to go. And so for us to have some ideas to at least propose to them to guide that direction and that growth can be very helpful. And so for the assignment, for the mentor cycle targets, set up at least one, and you can go more if you would find it beneficial. Also, there's the final anticipation guide. As we talked about before too, you might want to use some of that time to role play some of those scenarios. So enjoy your time together and enjoy each other's company in that final anticipation guide, as you guys have spent a lot of time growing some great relationships with colleagues from all over our synod. And finally, the assessment. The final assessment is course paper effectiveness in mentoring, and that's due 2 weeks after the final class date. So there's still some time to put that together and to think about it, and to even just chew on next steps as you try things on and make some informed decisions and reflection in the paper. If you have any questions, please feel free, give me a call, text me, or got some time, send me an email. Now, before you go though, too, one of the most impactful things to learning is to be able to synthesize the learning. So before you go, I'd ask that you would complete the 3-2-1, which is in your packet page 7. And as you do, take the 3 minutes to write a response for each prompt. And then when you're done, post one response from the box of your choice to the thread off of this post where you found the recap video here. Want to thank you for taking the time to do that, and look forward to seeing you at the summer seminars the end of July, beginning of August.